Watch fans, today we're going to be taking a deep look into a piece that can be a little controversial when we talk about its actual history and origin, yet it's such a new watch. We're going to be taking a look at the Deep Sea Challenge as it has finally made its way to our homes and our wrist from the Deep Sea Challenger. This watch is one of those amazing pieces that you will hear a few different ideas of what people think that the actual history is for the watch itself, how things started. But for Rolex, it was one of those pieces that remains to keep kind of its peace and its quiet and silence about how things actually came about. Now, during that time, I was actually working for Rolex at one of the authorized dealers, selling as one of the actual sales ambassadors for Rolex as well as trainers. This is one of those pieces that I absolutely remember it being talked about and what would happen. And there was such a short window. When Rolex was actually approached about actually having the pieces being worn for this Mariana Trench dive, it was going to be one of those things that there was not a lot of time given. The team had actually had about 120 days, or a little less than 120 days, to come up with the watch because it was actually told to them at just that moment. And it was one of those things that Rolex became extremely excited and wanted to make sure that they were going to be participating in. So you actually had the team going absolutely nuts, trying to figure out what do we do. Now remember, for most watches when they were tested, especially for pieces that kind of create this type of mystery, the older way of actually testing a watch to see how the depth was started off in the 1950s. You would actually row your boat to the middle of one of the lakes in Geneva, and you would actually put the watch on a fishing line, tie it up really tight because you really don't want one of the fish to eat it, or you don't want it to get lost, but you would lower it by hand into the actual waters, and that would actually tell you, you would mark your rope, and as you marked your rope, it actually told you how deep the watch was. You would bring it back up, test it, see if it is still going to be water resistant, or in Rolex case, we actually like to say swim proof. So that would tell you if it actually made it to that depth. Then you would continue to do that over and over again until the watch actually did malfunction as far as being water coming into the piece itself when the case and crown were closed. Well, this took it to a new level. James Cameron was going to be doing this exploration. He reached out to Rolex, and this was no fishing line being lowered down into the water. This was going to be his own man-made vessel that was going to be doing this. This was extremely dangerous for a few reasons. One, this is a depth that our body pressure cannot handle at all. It actually becomes more than poisonous even for the oxygen itself, which is why you have things like decompression chambers and different things like that that actually help so that our heart doesn't explode. And like for the watch itself, the inner casing would explode because the oxygen would then become poisonous. And now we actually have popping on it as well. Well, this piece was going to be the one that actually changed Rolex's history when it came to the depths of how far a watch could go. Because it was such a short notice, Rolex was not going to have enough time to actually create a new watch. So what was going to be used was actually going to be the Deep Sea, and there was going to be a dial change. It made sense, clicked. Let's just do it that simple that way. Strap them on in certain places on the vessel so that we know that they are nice and secure so we don't have to worry about losing them to the depths, which that created its own challenges as well. But that would be actually what would start or generate this. Now remember, the Mariana Trench, this was something that we began to explore January 23rd of 1960. That was the time that man was going to the moon and man was trying to explore the deepest depths that there could be. Well, in 2012, when James Cameron did this, he actually just brought it back alive. We had a chance to explore underwater and see things that mankind has never seen before. With this particular piece, it would actually be created later. And it was one of those things that a lot of people thought would actually disappear because there had been no mention of it. Well, for Rolex, it's one of those things that whatever you see printed on the dial, it is never said to the public. However, for the company, it is always going to be that that watch should perform at 10 to 15% greater in depth than whatever is listed. So anytime you see a number on there, it can actually go to a lower depth. However, legally, Rolex does not want to be responsible for that, which I think is a very wise decision because we're saying that we can guarantee you at that depth no further, even though we know it's been time and tested to be a deeper range of depth and it can allow for more pressure. The Challenger is one of those pieces that definitely is a massive tool because remember, it's a tool first, watch second. So that's where we actually have the rule of saying that form follows function. So you actually would make sure that the functionality of the piece is going to work first, and then you begin to triangulate or create those forms so that you can actually make this piece to be wrist wearable. At 50 millimeters, it is definitely just that. It is a tool watch. It is massive in size when you actually see it in person. However, for a gentleman like myself with old linebacker hands, this piece really still does wear nicely on me. So if you do have a larger wrist, it's going to give a nice look. However, I have some clients that do have smaller wrists that may be around 16 or so, and for them, it still does give a nice look, just very bold and very strong. With the thickness of the case, it is going to be one of those pieces as well. I don't think that you should decide that you're going to be wearing a button-down shirt that's going to have buttons at the collar. Maybe with your French cuffs, it may actually slide under. Or what I would have a lot of my customers do, simply for $1 or $2 at most of your dry cleaners, you can have that button moved. So if you do want to wear something as thick as this, you still have the opportunity, and it does still give you that chance to actually wear that piece where you can challenge those around you when it comes to the size of your watch. This is one of those pieces that I absolutely fell in love with. I love the ring lock system. I love all of the little details that Rolex put into it. And when it comes to everyday wear, by making this piece in titanium, which is the RLX titanium, this is Rolex's specific titanium, it gives you a nice wearability where you still do have some weight. It's not going to feel like a lot of the other pieces, like let's say a Breitling Emergency 2 or any of the other pieces that are going to be in titanium. This one does give a little weight, and of course with this massive case, it's going to give it some weight as well because the movement actually needs that spacing, and you need that there so that you can actually have the helium release valve, which this one is an automatic, so if you were ever in a decompression chamber, it will automatically release itself. Now remember, it will only do it in a decompression chamber. None of your watches will decompress themselves unless they're in a chamber. That's going to be a part of what it does if it has an automatic valve release. Otherwise, if you have one that unscrews, you're still going to have to unscrew it, and then that decompression chamber would actually release those gases from it. This watch is one of those pieces that I feel Rolex took their time and gave us exactly what we asked for something that could be used as a professional instrument, because the Submariner family, which includes the Deepsea, the Seadwellers, and of course now the Challenge, this family was made to be for professional divers. And this, I would definitely have to say, is the biggest, the largest, and the king of its profession. But we want to know what you think in the comments below.